The next handful of minutes, believe it or not, are brought to you by Grapplex. Grapplex, it won't come undone. Or it will. Whatever's sexier.
Happy Thanksgiving, y'all, and welcome to the 69-minute Eargasm. I'm Grant Fletcher, on Twitter at Grant L. Fletcher, and backing me up is our host, the quintessential stud muffin, Joel Gertner. Joel, how goes it, man?
It goes good. It goes real good. You know, it goes well. It goes that good.
It goes good, man. It goes hard. You got any Thanksgiving plans coming up for the week?
The usual. Just eat myself into a silly little stupor and not really do much. Just kind of relax, enjoy the day, give thanks. Just the usual. Nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing too crazy.
Yeah, eat, nap, watch some football, maybe watch an old Survivor Series repeat. Sounds good to me, man.
That's it. That's the meaning of life right there.
Yeah, man. Have you, real quick, I gotta ask you, have you gotten any updates yet this week, if you know what I'm talking about?
Are you talking about, all right. What you're talking about, does it have anything to do with Ray Dacron?
I mean, I didn't want to just come out and say Ray Dacron, but yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anything. For our listeners, if you haven't been keeping up, Ray Dacron, the CEO of Grapplex, our main sponsor here,
who we're not allowed to talk about, but because they're our main sponsor, there is a clause in the contract with them that we do need to promote them. So we need to make sure that we put them first and foremost. We need to put them out there. We need to get them recognition. We need to bring notoriety. We need to increase visibility for their brand. We need to do all these things in promoting Grapplex and specifically personally Ray Dacron. But yet there's also a clause in the contract that we're not allowed to talk about Ray Dacron or probably Grapplex.
Yeah, we're not allowed to mention the name Ray Dacron. Yeah. Exactly. We're not allowed to mention the name Ray Dacron. However, Ray Dacron did go to prison in his home country of I always get this wrong. I think you might too. Herzegovina. And Herzegovina over there.
Hurts him to hurts when it goes over there and where He's in the clink, man. Like he's locked up in a cage, dude, like an animal. I don't know, and I mean, or maybe not. You know, it's because when you're getting news from The Wire from Herzegovina, it's like it's as reliable as maybe here in the States, getting something from an outlet like. It's actually nothing like anything in the States. It's actually, they don't really have news. They have, they're still on kind of a town crier system, but the messenger gets shot a lot.
Yeah, there's no expression.
When they get a salary, they don't get a yearly salary, they get a daily salary. It's weird.
Yeah, there's no expression in their language for don't shoot the messenger, so the messenger can never actually say don't shoot the messenger.
What's funny is there is a phrase in their language, shoot the messenger, frequently, often, and right between the eyes. But there isn't, just due to the way you conjugate verbs and whatnot, there is no way to say don't shoot the messenger.
Is that a literal translation, or is it just kind of, that's the general idea?
It's the general consensus of the analysis of the hypothesis of the figurative and literal iteration of that idiom, cliche, or idea.
Okay. I mean, regardless, Ray, he did get locked up for tax evasion. There was a rumor circulating that he had mysteriously disappeared from his cell, but as far as we know, the official word is he's still there. He's still locked up, right?
There are rumors that he hung himself.
Yeah, that's true. There were rumors that he hung himself.
He used to call. Remember when he used to call? Yeah. Remember when that was the worst of it? Is that Ray Dacron that he used to call, right? Like 3 a.m, he'd call, and it would be, a pestilence or an annoyance, and everyone would live to fight another day. and he wouldn't be rumored to have hung himself by a messenger that was shot between the eyes at high noon in the town square.
Yeah,
Remember
look,
when that was just how it was?
yeah, and I don't want to say that I've slept better since he went to prison, but I have slept uninterrupted since he went to prison.
That's better.
That sounds
you don't have
better.
to say it. I'll say it for you.
It sounds better.
That's not bad. It's not bad. It's not is what I'm saying. It's not bad.
Right, for sure. But if you got, look, here's the deal. He probably is drowning in lawyer bills right now. So if you want to support Ray, just go to prowrestlingtees.com/Joel Gertner or go to prowrestlingtees.com and search for Joel Gertner. And you can pick yourself up a red Grapplex t-shirt, a raw red Grapplex t-shirt.
Raw red.
And as an added bonus, cherry on top, make sure you leave your phone number. And somewhere in the near future, you just might, actually, well, I shouldn't say might, you'll receive a call from none other than the lyrical miracle himself, Joel Gertner.
Yes. This will happen. It will be done. I will see to it. I will enjoy it. And it will be something that you can treasure forever.
Is there a list of approved conversation topics that are allowed on the phone, or are you just kind of letting them, we'll say, fly by the seat of their pants?
I don't want to talk about politics. I don't want to talk about the weather. And by the weather, I mean climate change or trite niceties like, so how's the weather right now where you are? I don't really want to get into that. I will not talk about sports entertainment, but I will talk about sports and I will talk about entertainment. And depending on how nice the person is, I may talk about sports entertainment. And if I do, the call might go a little bit long. I don't want to talk about anyone's mothers because I needn't be talking about people who I am have a full familiarity with. So that would disqualify a lot of the mothers in the demographic of people who'd be buying shirts. And beyond that, I can't really think of anything else I either would or wouldn't want to talk about.
Nice. So you said politics. You're talking about what you hear about on the national news, or are you talking about locker room politics, or both?
Probably both. We could keep it simple and just talk about food. Yeah.
That's probably the only subject that you didn't cover in that list of forbidden topics. So food. So come with your best food conversation or food jokes or whatever you got there once you buy a Grapplex t-shirt at prowrestlingtees.com/Joel Gertner. And just wait on your phone call about food.
Yeah, and there are food jokes out there. Why did little Timmy throw the margarine out the window because he wanted to see butterfly? And it's out there. It's not some of the better ones, but
yeah, it's not that it can't be done. It's not that it cannot be done.
Right, it can be done. Right, it can be done. There's, there are jokes about how, sometimes the meatballs at the Spanish restaurant are a little bit smaller, and that's because sometimes the bull wins, and there's all sorts of food-related jokes.
Yeah, speaking of phone calls and phone conversations, though, you did recently have a phone call with a legend of the wrestling business, Joel. Do you want to tell us about that?
I did. I spoke with Sonny Onoo, and we had a great talk about the 90s and WCW. We talked about before that and a little bit about what's been going on with him after that. We talked about other stuff that he's done outside of wrestling in his career and in his life. We talked about Japan. We talked about all the international talent that he's managed. It was just a great interview.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff here. One thing I didn't realize whenever you first had this phone call with Mr. Sonny Onoo is that just a few weeks ago, he had a heart attack, and I did not know about that. But he sounds great on the phone. Sounds like he's really bounced back. He's a tough guy.
Yeah, he sounded amazing on the phone. I wouldn't have known either. And yeah, he was more than happy to talk with us for a better part of an hour or so about anything that came up, really. And we even have some trivia about how, it was Eric Bischoff. A lot of people know that he and Sonny Onoo are friends personally. from Minnesota, from that area. And it was Eric Bischoff in WCW in the 90s that brought Sonny Onoo into professional wrestling. But we will go into the trivia question of who, albeit indirectly, is responsible for bringing Eric Bischoff into professional wrestling by way of getting him his first wrestling-related affiliation gig, that kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to hear that trivia question get answered on this interview.
Yeah, it's a great conversation. I can't wait for you guys out there to hear it. And, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to leave us a review. Don't forget to drop us a rating. Follow us on Twitter. He's at StudMuffinSays. I am at Grant L. Fletcher. And this is Sonny Onoo.
And we are back with the 69-minute eargasm. Our guest this week is not just ingenious, not just impressive, but an influencer and an innovator in the true sense of the word. Because the man that we have with us tonight, among everything else that he did in professional wrestling and all the greats that he managed and everything else that he brought to the table, is known also for something that we now do on a daily, some of us maybe on an hourly basis. This is the man who, let me ask you, have you taken a selfie today? Sure. But when I met this man at StarCast, I didn't just take a selfie. I took with him the selfie of all selfies, because as an individual, this is the man, the character who portrayed it and brought it to popular culture in the United States of America and around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, the master of the selfie, none other than Sonny Onoo. Sonny, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, great, man. How are you? Man, what an intro, right?
Good. Thank you.
I appreciate the intro. Yeah, we didn't call it selfie back then. He was, it was a Japanese guy. It was a little wind-up Fuji Instamatic camera, trying to memorize the moment with all the great wrestling stars that I got to introduce at WCW back in the days. And it was just a thing to do. And, listen, the first guy who invented the camera, I'm sure he did the selfie first. So I'm not going to say I'm the guy who did it first. But I will tell you this, that I was one on a national television on a week after week, whether it was Saturday night TV taping for WCW Saturday night or Monday Night Nitro, or Thursday Thunder, and whatever it was in all those pay-per-views, I was doing a selfie with all my great wrestlers. So, I will say that I did before he was called a selfie. I was doing it, and so I do kind of say I was an innovator. I was certainly
That's
doing
how you know
it because everybody else. No, go ahead.
No, not to cut you off at all, but that's how you know it's true innovation, Sonny, is that because it wasn't even called a selfie yet. That's how you know it's innovation. And I couldn't agree with you more. And that's exactly what I was meaning to say, is that, look, just like you said, sure, people had taken selfies before, and there's the guy who invented the camera and all that. We can look at it on that level. But in popular culture, you can't sell it short. You can't downplay it. You could see, as a stereotype, you could see an Asian tourist taking a picture at a landmark. And you might see it on like a Saturday Night Live sketch as a one-off thing. Not an established character, but you might see them make it in a sketch. Mad TV, something like that. Or on a commercial, like a Minosa commercial, some unnamed character. But you, as an established character and as an individual, Sonny Onoo, to me, and granted I'm biased because I'm a huge wrestling fan, that's a lot of what I watch, but I also watch quite my fair share of TV and movies, and to me, if I'm being honest, you stand out as the first individual and character
who brought what is now the selfie into popular culture.
Well, thank you very much. It was fun, and it was kind of part of my persona as Sonny Onoo, the what we call the evil Japanese manager that I was, and it was fun time, and getting a little away from selfie, but all those great wrestlers that I got to manage, some of the greats from Japan, and it's really interesting because the guy like Otani, who is now president of a 0-1 promotion in Japan, and you have Kaz Hayashi, who is the president of a Wrestle One promotion, and Great Muta, that I was with last weekend. And of course, he's the chairman of Wrestle One. And you go down the line, or even Gedo, who is now the head booker for New Japan Pro Wrestling. So all those people that I manage, everybody from late great Masa Saito to Jushin Thunder Liger, you got Chono, you got Muda, you got Kinski. I mean, all the great, and that's just the Japanese I'm mentioning. I mean, think about all the luchadors I got to manage.
Sure.
La Parka, the Psychosis, Silver King, who passed away this year earlier. Some of the great wrestlers from all over the world I got to manage, including, of course, Ernest the Cat Miller. I'm honored that we got to do what we got to do. In a culture and a history of wrestling, I must say I probably managed, the great wrestlers. And we were ahead of our time so much, in a sense that, when Medusa came into WCW, I was just with Medusa last weekend, and we kind of talked about it. Because she was training All Japan Pro Wrestling, which is, I got to tell you, the training there is, probably tougher than anything else that anybody will even realize, and Medusa can attest to that. But, order for her to have comparable matching athlete, we have to bring in guys, person like Go Nakano, Chigusa Nagayo, Akira Hokuto. Those are the great Japanese wrestler from All Japan Pro Wrestling. Of course, All Japan Ladies would be, pro wrestling in Japan. And
used to love it. I was a tape trader before I got into the business as a teenager growing up and trying to study the business and everything from an in-ring perspective as far as just work rate talent. I used to love nothing more than early to mid-'90s All Japan Women's, the best.
Yeah, women wrestling has come a long ways, and I think I must say, WCW with the Medusa and Akira Hokuto, who is now forever WCW Women Champion. She's a big time television star now in Japan, a television personality. She's done a lot of morning shows and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. She's big time now in Japan. And, but they were so tight and so, you talk about strong style Japanese, they personifies that. And no disrespect to the ladies that we have now, at WWE, but boy, I tell you what, they're just to a point now where they could have a matches with those great women wrestlers from Japan. You got Asuka, you got, Miss Flair, and you got Becky, and, those women can go. And they can run with that great group back in 90s, so women wrestling has come a long ways, because they were, for the longest time, they were just eye candy, certainly at WWE and WWF. And now, without a doubt, they're the an equal level, athletic wise and otherwise, with any of the wrestlers, anywhere in the world.
Sonny, what I like to do at the beginning of every interview is I like to start from the beginning. Every time I have a guest on, I like to, because the one thing that we all have in common is our love and our involvement in professional wrestling. Most of the guests on the show are involved in it directly. But what we don't have in common, what makes each one of us kind of unique like fingerprints, is how we grew up, where we're from, our family life, and also transitioning towards when we got into the business, what our first exposure to pro wrestling was as a viewer or as a fan, and then how we broke into the industry itself. So that's what I'd like to ask you, if you don't mind. What was life like as a kid and growing up, and let us know everything aside from wrestling that made you you and made you unique. And then if you also wouldn't mind, how did you find wrestling? And then where did you go to find out about getting in and stuff like that, if you don't mind.
Well, I'm an immigrant. I was born in Japan, and I moved here when I was 11 years old with my family. And that's one of the, the advantage I have is I'm bilingual, which makes it much easier. Now, there's a lot of people that comes over here who are bilingual in Japanese and English, but the problem is because of certain words like L and R, there's no such, they don't roll their tongue in Japanese language. So, R is a very hard pronunciation. And just like anything else, you can learn, especially in the Asian language, if you're not assimilated, it's very hard to speak in their native accent. Same as English, right? So you got in English, you got the New York accent, you got Southern accent, and of course, if you see most of the television personality, they all speak with Midwest accent, meaning that they're, like you and I speak. And one of the fortunate thing I have is because I'm educated here. So, if you didn't know you were speaking to the Japanese-born person, you may have a hard time knowing that I'm a Japanese descent, or I'm English is my second language. That's the advantage I have. And those were the advantage I had when I was managing all the great wrestlers, that I could speak certainly coherent enough, and with that little accent. Although some of the accent that I used was actually I actually used the accent. In fact, Eric Bischoff made a fun. So why are you talking with that accent? Why don't you just talk like what you usually talk? But I'm supposed to be the Japanese guy, so But to get back to your initial question, so I came here when I was 11, educated here, and one of the things that I studied judo and karate before I came to the United States, so I continued that wherever I can find the instruction. I went to school up in Alaska, actually Fairbanks, Alaska. And practice karate there, continue to practice my karate and judo there. And when I moved, when I was 19 years old, I chased a girl down to Minnesota from Alaska, and I settled in Minnesota. And I was also continued to study my martial arts. And I was teaching karate at the YMCA, and ended up being getting a job at the local police department, hourly police department, as a self-defense tactical instructor. And through that, so I continued my martial art training. And there was a school up in Minnesota. It was called the Junri Institute, and there was a group of 4 guys that used to teach up there. One of the guys was Gordon Frank, who became a super lightweight champion of the world at Professional Karate Association. And so I trained up there. And the manager of that school happened to be a guy named by Eric Bischoff. And he was 20-some years old, and he was 20-some years old. We're about 6 months apart in age, actually. And Eric he's the kind of guy who liked to scrap. He liked it, he liked fighting. And so he got involved in martial arts. So him and I and a group of, a few guys, we would travel all over the United States, and, we had a lot of money, so we would drive in our van and go to places like Atlanta, Georgia, Chicago, Detroit, Texas, and we pay our fee of $25, and we could fight all day long and very little prize money, even if you won it. But and that's what we did, and that's how Eric Bischoff and I became friends. And since then, we in earlier days we done some business together. And one of the business we did together was that I came up with this game called Ninja Star Wars and showed it to Eric. And it was a kind of low-tech laser tag. You threw this Velcro Ninja Stars at each other. And Eric says, the businessman that he is, he says, Sonny, we got to get this on TV. And I have no clue how to get that stuff on TV. So he says, well, there's a syndicated show, a wrestling show. And Eric Bischoff, and you can ask him this, it went to see Vern Gagne because they had commercial time from syndicated show. So we made a deal so he can run our commercial, and we would do the fulfillment, and we would split the profit. And because of that, because that game, and because of Eric have enough know about the business to get this game on television, went to Vern Gagne and AWA, and that's how Eric Bischoff got a job at AWA as actually he got a job there initially as a salesperson. He was selling syndicated shows for AWA, and of course later became third string announcer. And one of the things he did at AWA was sell syndicated show to TBS in Atlanta, Turner Television, and that's where that contact comes from. And when Eric moved on to TBS and WCW as a third string announcer, and as he moved up the rank, that's how he got into wrestling. So you can honestly, and I asked Eric about this, so he will attest to this. That reason, whether you like Eric Bischoff or not, if you're gonna blame why he's in a business, you can blame me for it. So that's how Eric Bischoff got in a wrestling business.
That's so funny. That's amazing. That's amazing, right? A lot of people would think because you guys have been friends going back to the 70s, I think, and a lot of people might think that you owe it all to him as far as and that he brought you into wrestling and that kind of thing. But like you're saying, looked at another way, because of the game and wanting to get that ad time and everything else, he's kind of got you to thank. It's just amazing how the world works like that sometimes, full circle.
Well, I know, and and what happened was, prior management of WCW had made a deal with New Japan Pro Wrestling, but didn't fulfill their part of the bargain. Me not knowing any of that stuff, Eric calls me one day and says, "Hey, you're fluent in Japanese, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Hey, I need to go take care of some business in Japan. Why don't you come with me? And we can talk about we always wanted to do a kickboxing karate show." He said, "We can kind of talk about that. Why don't we go over there?" I said, "Okay, free trip to Japan, great." So we make our way over there, and Eric Bischoff and I sit in front of 4 of the meanest looking Japanese you can imagine: Masa Saito, Mr. Sakaguchi, who was a judo Olympic champion. You got Ricky Choshu, and then I think you had Baisho. And these guys, they're looking at us like, and I have no idea. I have no idea.
That is a rogues gallery, man.
Oh man, and they're not smiling. They're not. They're not even a crack So I look at Eric, and there was a guy named by Tiger Hattori, who was from New York, worked for New Japan, who was a referee. And Tiger says to me, "You translate." Okay. So Eric started talking. Now, mind you, I have not heard any of this. This is the first time I'm hearing this. So I'm hearing and translating. And first thing Eric says is, I want to start out by apologizing for prior management. So as he speaks, I'm translating simultaneously and realizing when Eric says something that we're taking somewhere upward of $400,000 or $500,000 that New Japan has paid WCW for the WCW talent to come over here to Japan, and we didn't send anybody.
Wow.
So in essence, we're taking their money and then fulfill our part of the bargain. When I say our part, WCW part, I didn't work for WCW. I just went for the free ride. So
I guess it became pretty apparent that was about $500,000 worth of not smiling going on, huh?
Yeah. So now I feel like, oh my God, I'm spewing this, translating what Eric is saying, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, we're going to end up in a freaking Tokyo Bay. I mean, somebody's taking $500,000 from me. You know what I mean? There's going to be some problems. So Eric says, as I translate, Eric says, well, I want to apologize for what happened, and I want to make it up to you. So I would like to send you talent for a year, this coming year, and fulfill the money you paid us. And of course, lucky for us, they accepted it. And then Masa Saito says, who's going to be our contact person? Because that's always been a problem, that we can't communicate. We couldn't get anybody to, give us a clear answer. And Eric, without skipping a beat, says, oh, that'll be Sonny, because I'll take Sonny's call. And I look at him like, I don't work for you. What are you talking about? I'm looking at him like, what are you saying? And of course, that, Eric says, well, you're going to work for me now. So, all you have to do is answer the phone, tell me what they want, and we'll make it work. So I go, wow, okay. And that's how I got in the wrestling business.
Did you have creative input at all into who to bring in? Like as a scout?
No, not at all. Here's basically, it started out with them wanting our talent for their big shows, and in 4 or 5 years developed into $1 million deal, or we could use their talent, Muda, Chono, and what happened was they were using guys like Halls and Nash when they came in. Scott Norton, who was also working for New Japan at the time. So we made a deal, which was a very sound deal, which makes a lot of sense business-wise for everybody. They had under their management, New Japan did, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, and Scott Norton. Those are the guys that they had under contract under New Japan. And as our talent exchange program developed more and more, what we did was we offered those guys a WCW contract. So we put them under WCW contract, and New Japan was paying us one flat fee to be able to use those guys under the talent exchange program. So New Japan freed themselves for, paying those talent. Instead of paying the talent, they got use of all our talent and continue to use some of those guys that he was already established under a New Japan contract. So New Japan saves money in a way, and they get use of more of our talent. And then what happened was when the Nitro started, if you remember, we need to make as Eric, now this was all on Eric, He's, we wanted to be different. So we needed a cruiserweight. That's when we got, Chris Jericho. We got Ultimo Dragon. Of course, Dean Malenko, Benoit, and Eddie Guerrero. And then those were our core of, great cruiserweight. Then we started bringing, because of Nitro, we needed more body, more talent. So, and New Japan wanted the television exposure for their guys. So we brought in Muda, we brought in Chono, we brought in Masa Saito, Kensuke Sasaki, Kanemoto, Otani, all of those Japanese greats, the amazing workers. They came in, and of course, that developed into NWO Japan, and that was the biggest angle. The New Japan, even to this day, it was the biggest angle they ever had. They sold 8 million worth of T-shirt in 1998 of NWO T-shirt.
Yeah.
So it became a phenomenal success.
Being that you knew Eric Bischoff from back in the day, from earlier, I guess my question is, did you have a direct involvement in pro wrestling prior to the mid-90s, prior to WCW? Or is it fair to call that your debut? Did you have a cursory, tell me about kind of your transition. Was that the very first thing you did, was be kind of the New Japan liaison for Eric Bischoff and 94, 95?
Absolutely. I didn't know anything about pro wrestling. The only thing I know about pro wrestling was the AWA. I live in a town called Mason City, Iowa, which is about 100 miles south of Minneapolis. And, of course, AWA was up there. When Eric started working for them, a few years, he would come down here and promote a show in Mason City, Iowa, twice a year, Austin, Minnesota, and this was their territory. So they would bring wrestlers like Wahoo McDaniels and the Crusher, and those are the mainstay of AWA, and they would come here and then put up a show and Eric said, well, local CBS affiliate they will run commercials, and they're going to run a show at the Fairground, and I meet up with them on a weekend and go to the show. That's my extent of what pro wrestling was, what Eric was doing, and I don't know anything about the business, until I got to be the interpreter for that New Japan. First time I was in New Japan. And I started communicating with Masa Saito. And, of course, there was a guy named Brad Riggins who worked for New Japan as well. He was their liaison officer that lived up in Minneapolis. And, of course, he was Olympian as well. I think it was 84 Olympian in Greco. And so prior to that, I really didn't. And what happened was, once we started bringing their talent over here, New Japan talent, they needed a mouthpiece, a manager to speak for them. Great as that they're amazing workers, we're still trying to create television, so you still have to be able to have a mouthpiece. And it made sense because I can speak to them, and I was legit, right? And granted, wrestling is suspended reality, but he has to make sense. That's why I always find it that somewhat funny when you have non-speaking, even Colonel Parker in the days, you have a non-Japanese speaking management managing Japanese guys or Japanese ladies.
Right.
So granted, like I said, it's suspended reality, but you still have to make sense to the fans, and that's why even last weekend when I was in Buddha, and even some of the Japanese ladies that shows up at the I always help out on their signing at StarCast or and translate. and make sure that everybody understands what they're supposed to be doing. At least get an idea what the angles are, And he was great back in the days because I was front of the camera, I could play that evil Japanese character, And you got to remember back in the days, the mid '90s, Japanese, that was the Japanese bubble, there was before the bubble burst. So Japanese was buying up all the hotels and golf courses all over the United States. So
Right.
we did an angle one time where we were going when we did the deal in Sturgis. We sent a film crew and me, and I think Bobby Heenan was trying to film me the Mount Rushmore, and we did a little skit there. Man, you should have seen all the people getting, the real people that walk in the mic. He can't sell that to Japanese, So
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a great time. I really miss Bobby. He was such a great guy. But anyway, So that's the and it's really funny because I keep my friendship with, as you know, with Muda and Kaz Hayashi and all those great guys. And I'm leaving tomorrow to be with Ultimo Dragon in North Carolina. So I still manage those guys. More way than one. I literally manage their, some of their deals that they do out here, and it's a good time. I get to see my friends and, go have a good meal and talk about the good old days.
I don't want to bury the lead when it comes to karate and martial arts. We talked a bit about it, and you talked about your involvement in that a bit. But I want to make sure that we let people know that it doesn't go unnoticed. Tell me if I'm wrong, but PKA had you ranked at one time as the best bantamweight in the world.
Yeah, I was number one in the world from 1975 to 81. 6 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I
look back now and I go, wow, it's crazy because we, back in the days, we didn't get paid. We didn't really, and Eric will attest to this. We didn't do it for the money because there was no money, but we liked to test ourselves. We want, we're just like a bunch of young bucks,
If MMA,
yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, we were just way ahead of our time. Really was. MMA has come in where, wrestling, kickboxing, shoot wrestling, those things are very important part of to be successful. You got to be able to use your hand, you got to be able to use your foot. But once you get on the ground, you're going to know what the hell you're doing. Which is the jiu-jitsu and judo. So MMA is forefront, but and like I said, Eric's background is in wrestling, so he blew out his knee and he couldn't wrestle anymore in college. That's why he got into karate. But so he could continue to still, satisfy his need for man-to-man combat. And for us, that's we did it because we like to go out and scrap. That's it. That's and especially when you're young, that's in your DNA. And I'm believe it or not, to a martial art world, I'm still known as that karate guy. I'm still pretty known. Who most people in martial art knows who I am. But of course, wrestling fan knows me as that guy on that evil Japanese manager who managed just about everybody.
What I'm curious about is, picture it's 1981. You've been ranked number one for 6 years. MMA exists. MMA is a thing. And MMA, it's not 1981. It is, but it isn't. Picture it's like 30 years later, it's like what MMA is in 2011. Just in 1981. In other words, if MMA had burgeoned 25, 30 years earlier, does Sonny Onoo think about getting involved and becoming
Oh,
an MMA
absolutely.
player?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, what's really funny is that the spirit of wanting to fight it still exists. About 4 years ago, you can actually go to YouTube and find this. I fought two-time defending champion, a lightweight champion, a Battle of Atlanta World Championship. This is 2 or 3 years, about 3 years ago now, and Eric was supposed to fight the heavyweight, and for some reason he couldn't make it. So I continued, and Ernest was there because it's in Atlanta, and I fought in the finals. I made it through the finals and fought the two-time defending champion, and I won the championship. I won the world championship at the Battle of Atlanta about 3 years ago at age 63.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, I hate the guy. Believe it or not, no. I mean, mind you, this is shoot now. This is not work. So, you know, I hit the guy with a cartwheel kick.
Wow.
I actually did a cartwheel and hit him with both of my foot in his head.
Amazing.
Yeah, I amazed myself.
You know, like you said before, when it's wrestling, it's not just physical. There's the acting, right? There's the TV, there's the drama,
right.
And there's the episodic, right? It's a show,
right?
So now to show how well-rounded and how multiverse you are. So yeah, you know, a number one karate player for 6 years, but now also in addition to pro wrestling, you've done a little bit of acting as well, haven't you? If you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about some acting type stuff that you've done outside of pro wrestling.
Well, what happened is that, you know, when you're in martial arts, you know, you get opportunities, and I did a movie called, it was originally came out, it was film and production out of Toronto. Matter of fact, Joao Maurice, it was the star of the movie. He's still out there making TVs and movies right now. He's from Canada. Actually, we did a movie. Well, I was in a movie. I played the second lead. I played the Chinese cop. We had some fight scene in there, and Jamie Farr was in it. Bolo Young, who is the big muscle guy in Bruce Lee Enter the Dragon, he was in there. Monica Schneer, who was a big time model at the time, she's in there. And we actually did a movie. We filmed in Canada, and we filmed in Hong Kong as well. And I had an opportunity to do a multi movie deal, but in Hong Kong, you know, they make movie like in 15 days, and they don't pay you a lot. So I said, you know what, I did a movie that was on my bucket list. So I did one movie, so I was good enough, and I was fortunate enough to get involved in WCW, and lo and behold, I got an amazing amount of camera time on a national television.
If we're being accurate and if we're being thorough and we're covering all bases, we talked about starting out in WCW and New Japan involvement as a translator and liaison. So if we're being fair, we want to flash forward about what it is, 4 or 5 years to the end of the decade, and we want to talk about closer to around the time of your exit from WCW. And because it involves a lawsuit, I want to tread lightly, and I also don't want to make you uncomfortable.
Okay. I mean, it's pretty well documented. I mean, it was, I can only speak for myself. It was not a class action suit. There was at that point, I think there was, a dozen guys who sued the company. Mine was a little different because I was treated as an officer of the company, and I have access to. I wasn't a worker per se. I mean, I still was in front of the camera, but I played double role, right? I mean, I was doing all the work for New Japan, WCW deals. Everything from their merchandise order to talent request, there was multi stuff I was doing, And what happened was, in 1999, I think it was in October or so, I signed a 2-year deal. With Nick Lambros. I signed a 2-year deal, and what happened was Eric got ousted right about that time. For the first time, they kind of got rid of Eric, told him to go home. I guess I was also, we didn't hide anything. I was a good friend with Eric, although I believe I never used Eric as leverage or anything like that. But what happened was, I was known as Eric guy, right? And just because of our long-time friendship. And when that happened, I think that's one of the reasons why they wanted to terminate me. But what happened was a guy named Vince Russo came in, and he makes a public statement. Now, they could have just made me sit at home, along with all the Mexicans and all the Japanese. But, he makes a public statement on air, says he's from America and he doesn't want any Japanese or Mexican on his TV, and proceed to take all of us off television. And now there's nothing I can do about that, except to the point when they terminated my contract. I said, well, you can't terminate me because I'm Japanese. Because I've been on the show for, I've been on the show for almost 6 years. So how's that work? And, end of the day, they're settled. Everything worked out fine for me. Actually, in retrospect, when you're out there on the road for 200 and some odd day a year, you don't realize how much you're missing at home. Having 4 kids, and thank goodness they were still young. My oldest daughter was still in high school, 10th grade maybe. So it worked out well because I got to go to her soccer games and got to see my daughter won a state cheerleading contest, and my youngest won Dan Gable, who's run up to Dan Gable Mr. Wrestling Award as a senior, and won a state titles in the state of Iowa, which is not easy to do. And so I got, in retrospect, it was good. And so it worked out like it was supposed to. I have no regrets. But that's what happened, and that, now he could have said he didn't like my persona. I don't want to use him anymore. But just because he brought race into it, he made it kind of simple for us to say, you can't terminate somebody because they're Mexican, or terminate somebody because they're Japanese. So, from my perspective, it was pretty slam dunk. They haven't knew that either because they settled.
Right. And now, it's been 2 decades. Almost to the day.
Yeah.
When you think about it, I think a lot of the stuff we were just talking about was November or so of 99. And now,
exactly.
We're here talking in November of 19. What have you been doing since? What has life been like, and what's been keeping you busy in, literally almost exactly the 20 years since they settled?
Well, fortunately for me, I was in business before. I owned a health club. I had a karate school, a health club, weight gym. So I had that before I went into. Of course, I actually gave that up and gave it to my students when I went into wrestling. But I was always I always owned a car dealership, a used car dealership. So I dabbled in that for the last. I still own my dealership. Of course, business has changed now with the internet. But matter of fact, when you called, I was looking at some cars on dealer auction site, and for a friend, because that's what I do now. Somebody want to buy a car, I'll find him one, and I'll save a bunch of money by not buying it from dealership, quote unquote. I mean, I'm a dealer, so you're buying it from dealership, but I just charge a flat fee and go get you a car. And generally I can save anything from $2,000 to $6,000. Depends on what car they're buying. So so I've been doing that. So and I also own some real estate. So I never have to go find another 8 to 5 jobs. So I've been very fortunate, and still manage some of the wrestlers, still work in Japan, still do some consultant work. I work for Fight TV, getting them some new content, especially overseas, especially in Japan. President of Fight TV is Michael Weber, who was one of the WCW vice presidents back 25 years ago. So,
big time player in wrestling. Yeah, good guy. I always enjoy working with him, working for him at StarCast. Very cool.
Yeah, so I work for him on Fight TV, and a matter of fact, we just did a series that will be coming out now again. We just took a group of 11 guys. We called them Chosen One. We had a bunch of tryout all over the United States on 6 different locations. We had one at the Hog up in New York, one for Wrestling Factory. We had them at the Hood Slam, Inoki Dojo, and one in Dallas and one in Kansas City. And we picked 12 guys and gave them scholarship to Wrestle One Dojo. And we just a couple of weeks ago, we got back from there. We spent a week over there. Those guys were training, and they were impressive enough to wrestle one, so they got to wrestle on Korakuen Hall, which is kind of bucket list for every wrestler, right next to Tokyo Dome there, and they got to wrestle with them, and so and we'll be doing that again. We'll be doing another tryout, 2020, and we'll be taking another group over to Japan. So, I stay busy. I do projects, do what I like to do. And of course, like I told you, I was managing Luda last week, and I'll be managing Ultimo Dragon this coming week. And I'll be back with Kaz Hayashi and Great Muda again at WrestleCade. So that's the end of the month. So, get to stay busy and stay involved.
What about hobbies? What about aside from involvement in the business and aside from other business and investments, do you have any time for downtime? Do you have any kind of activities, hobbies, any kind of sports, music, anything like that keeps you busy? My downtime is to be able to spend my time with my family. It's hard now because all my kids are grown, and they're all out there hustling and paying their taxes. But I got a couple of grandsons that is 4 and 8, and 4 and 7. They just turned 7, I think, or 7 or 8. Anyway, and I got a granddaughter on the way. Should be here in a couple of weeks. I think she'll be making her debut in the world. So, look, man, I my life's been blessed. I'm just had my wedding anniversary for 38 years with my lovely wife. And it's the nicest person I know, and she takes care of me. So I am very fortunate to be able to do what I get to do, and my mantra, in life anymore is eliminating half-this. Like, I don't have to get up in the morning. I don't have to go do that, and I don't have to, you know. So I'm very lucky. You know, I get to hang out with my little black pug Shadow, and we just kind of hang out, and we do projects. And project is great because there's a beginning, you know, and middle and end. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you feel satisfied when it's done, and you got, you know, you can either take the downtime or go to another project. You know, it's always something exciting and new. So, yeah, and you know, more than anything else, I got to tell you before I leave that the friendship that I have, you know, forged from wrestling and martial art too, but especially in wrestling, you know, 20 years later, I'm still managing Ultimo Dragon. You know, 20 years later, I'm still doing business with Kaz Hayashi of Wrestle One. You know, I was in Tokyo 3 weeks ago. Went to Fujinami, Mr. Fujinami's sold out show, and it was a hell of a card because Buddha, Chono, Tenzan, all these great was there. And what was really cool was, you know, it was sold out. Kaz Hayashi got me a ticket for me and my boys that was there. And one of the young boys, one Japanese boys, came up and says, "Hey, do you have time to, you know, say hello to Mr. Fujinami?" You know, so I go down in the locker room, and I got to tell you, man, in Japan, nobody gets to go to the locker room. It's real kayfabe down there. You know what I mean? And you know, I mean, everybody just accepted me like, you know, it was 20 years ago. You know, and hanging out with Chono Muda and Mr. Fujinami and it was just great, you know. So I'm very fortunate, and you know, and Eric said it best, you know. I have a very unique set of skills because of my ability to speak English, so that you audience and fan can understand the word that's coming out of my mouth, as they say, and at the same time, I done enough business in Japan, so. And doing business in Japan is, you know, it's building a relationship. And so I have a 25-year relationship with all these guys in Japan. So, you know, I'm accepted there. You know what I mean? So that makes my heart very warm, and I'm very grateful for that. And I just got off phone earlier with Sting, talking about doing some business in Japan together. And so, you know, just being able to have those kind of friendship that I can call people and you know, at AEW show, you know, I haven't seen Chris Jericho for almost 20 years. You know, getting a big hug from him, and you know, those are the moments that you know, you can't even put into words. You know what I mean? And so I am absolutely blessed. I'm very happy with my life.
Sonny, is there anything that you want to plug? Is there anything you want to let the people who are listening know about before we go, whether it's your social media or I know you mentioned the dates that you have upcoming, but this is, please let people know how they can find you, or if you have any merchandise or any business that you do, how they can partake in that.
Yeah, well, you know, my selfie made man shirt, little cartoon guy. You can go to my Facebook. And I can give you a link to I think Shopfly has them, and you can get those T-shirts. And if you take a selfie, which is if you buy a T-shirt and you take a selfie with my shirt on and send me your address, I'll send you a autograph by Jan. So you know, and you can find me on a Facebook under Sonny Onoo, I'll be with Clinton, North Carolina. I will be tomorrow with Ultimo Dragon this weekend, and of course I'll be at the WrestleCade, and that's in Winston-Salem, end of the month, 29th and 30th. We'll be there with Kaz Hayashi and Great Muda. So you know, and there's a couple of big things coming up and going to a few international places. So, man, I tell you what, I just, I'm very happy that I get to do these things and name professional wrestling.
I want to thank you for taking the time tonight to talk with us. It was I knew that I wanted to have you on the show, and when I ran into you, when I got to meet you in Vegas in May, it was a pleasure meeting you, and it was a pleasure talking with you, and it kind of confirmed that you were going to be the great guest that you were. And I'm just glad that our schedules matched up and we were able to record this when we could. And I just want to wish you all the best with everything that you do.
Well, I appreciate that, and I guess we let the cat out of the bag today. That the reason why Eric Bischoff's in the wrestling business is because of Ninja Star War game.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, that's the trivia question, right? Is that before Eric Bischoff brought Sonny Onoo into wrestling, indirectly Sonny Onoo brought Eric Bischoff into wrestling. That's a little known fact, I guess. That's amazing. Right. It really is.
Well, listen, thanks for having me, and anything I can do to help you promote, let me know, and I'll be seeing you around at the next event, right?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, great.
Thanks so much, Sonny. Really appreciate it.
All right, good night.
Thank you, and we'll have more 69-minute eargasm after this.
Well, it's about that time in the 69-minute eargasm where we throw it to history. We throw it to the archives. We throw it to the days of way back. And we throw it to the one man who can take us through the journey and let us know what happened on this day in history. And that gentleman is John Pantozzi.
Okay, thank you, Joel. So let's go right back to 1947, Minneapolis, Minnesota. NWA World Champ Sandor Szabo beat Dirty Dick Reigns. We jump 2 decades to 1967 in St. Paul, Minnesota. AWA champion Vern Gagne beats Handsome Harley Race. Still in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, 1981, Vern Gagne has his official retirement match, his final match, except for his other appearances he made later. But in his final official retirement match, he defeated Adrian Adonis. The next year, in 1982, in New Orleans, Louisiana, Stagger Lee defeated Ted DiBiase to win the Mid-South Wrestling North American title. And of course, Stagger Lee was Junkyard Dog, under the hood. 1985, in Madison Square Garden, the Spider Lady defeated Wendy Richter to win the WWF Women's title. Of course, the Spider Lady turned out to be the fabulous Moolah, very controversial match to this day. 1987, the NWA invades Long Island, New York, Nassau Coliseum for the War Games. Ronnie Garvin, Dusty Rhodes, Barry Windham, Ricky Morton, and Robert Gibson defeated Big Bubba, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, Bobby Eaton, and Stan Lane. 2 years later, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, NWA World Heavyweight Champ Ric Flair defeated NWA Television Champ, the Great Muta. 1991, in Memphis, Tennessee, the Ugandan Giant Kamala pinned Jerry Lawler to win the USWA Unified World title. And finally, in 1994, in Albany, Georgia, the WCW Tag Team Champions Marcus Alexander Bagwell and the Patriot defeated Paul Romer and Jean-Paul Levesque, who we all know went on to be Triple H. And that'll wrap it up for November 25th.
Interesting day in history, and you always choose some of the most interesting selections from these days. It's always a blast. John, thank you so much for being with us again this week.
Thank you, Joel.
And we'll have more 69-minute eargasm after this.
Graplex message. Hi, Ray Dacron is my name, and the name of the CEO of Graplex. So there's this thing, T-shirts. Have you ever seen one? What about feel, though? But have you ever, for example, held one? Or even worn it on your own body? Well, then here's a t-shirt. This is one made to celebrate the sports entertainment enthusiast in all of us, even down to the color. Raw red. Raw red. Yes, it's available for purchase. Sure. What size are you? Now available at prowrestlingtees.com/Joel Gertner.